Yeah, I went to see it last week.
Dan, how's it going?
That might take good. All right, if I can have everybody's attention, please. Good evening and welcome everybody, and also to the folks at home. Being 7 p.m., a meeting of the Committee of Infrastructure was held today, Wednesday, March 26, 2025 at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber, and duly noticed in 2 places, including the city's website, in accordance with the requirements of RSA 91A, ;2, Roman numeral 2. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Alderman at Large Michael O'Brien.
Present.
Richard Dowd.
Present.
Alderman Patricia Klee, absent. Alderman John Sullivan.
Here.
Alderman Chris Thibodeau is here.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4 in attendance.
Okay. Also in attendance, we have Mr. Tim Cummings, Administrative Service Director, Jennifer McCormick, Library Director. We expect her a little bit later. And Liz Hammond, I don't see, but she may be popping in. And Jill Stanfield, Parking Manager. And Mr. Andy Proman, Esquire, of Prunier and Proman, PLLC. Okay, at this, we'll start the meeting, and I would like to introduce the petition for street acceptance of Saddleback Drive, and I'm going to recognize Attorney Andy Proman of Prunier and Proman, PLLC, and can you give us an overview of what we're looking at here? And can you bring that up on the GIS map, please?
Sir.
That's good, yes.
That's perfect. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good evening. My name is Andy Perlman, attorney with Prunier and Perlman here in Nashua. I'm here on behalf of Saddleback Estates Limited Liability Company, and we are requesting a positive recommendation back to the Board of Aldermen for acceptance of Saddleback Estates. Saddleback Estates is an 11-lot subdivision that the Planning Board approved in 2021. Since 2021 till today, the project has been built out. 11 homes are on site. The road is in, the sewer is in, the utilities are all in, and the project is essentially done, with the exception that people living there and kids and going to school and everything. But the project is complete. It's all built. The road is built. And we have a petition for the town, or the city to take over Saddleback Drive. We petitioned for street acceptance. And we have the blessing of the planning board and the engineering department with one little caveat. And that caveat is we've been having a heck of a time getting Eversource to make sure all the streetlights are on. They were supposed to be out there this afternoon to finish off the last of the couple, I think there are 2 or 3 lights left to be turned on. They promised that they would have it done today. I'm going to go from here to Saddleback to make sure that they are on. And so the caveat that we've agreed with the engineering department is that this petition does not move forward to the Board of Aldermen unless the engineering department sees that all the lights are on and they give it their blessing. So with that one little caveat, that little condition with the engineering department, we are asking for your positive recommendation to the full Board of Aldermen.
Okay. One question that I have, Mr. Perlman, is there water hydrants?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it meets all
utilities
that.
in, water hydrants, everything's in.
Outstanding. Very good.
Yep.
All right. Any questions from members of the committee to Mr. Perlman? Seeing none. I thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good. I see we have Mr. Dan Hudson. Are you here for this, or would you like to speak, or can you write him down, Dan Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dan Hudson, City Engineer. I do support the petition being accepted and the street being accepted. There is just one little minor issue with the lights. The structure's all there. It's just a matter of getting the wiring working sufficiently. That's the only issue we've raised, but otherwise, to our understanding and knowledge, everything was constructed according to plan and in accordance with city requirements. So we do support accepting of the street.
And you're satisfied with the agreement that was reached that a CO or whatever won't be reached until the
Yeah,
lights are bright?
What we discussed was, I'm comfortable with a favorable recommendation from this committee tonight to the full board, but should it go to the full board and the lights still aren't on, then I would ask it to be tabled or deferred there until such time as that was resolved. But
Okay.
we do expect it'll be resolved hopefully tonight. But if it isn't, I'll be sure to notify the full board of that, and we'll put it on pause at the full board.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Hudson.
Thank
Yes, Mr. Perlman, I'll recognize you again, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one quick clarification. We are petitioning for the city to accept both Saddleback Drive, and you see that little stub coming off Saddleback Drive to the south? That's included in the petition as well. That's on the subdivision plans. That was called Future Street. That's part of our petition to the alderman as well.
Where on the map is that, sir?
opening.
It's the opening in between the two yellow lots.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Yep, right there, yep.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
That's part of it. And it dead ends right at the rear lot line of those two lots.
yeah, all right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. Mr. Hudson, you agree with that? Thumbs are up. Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Okay. All right, seeing as, oh, yes, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you.
Alderman Sullivan, excuse
So
me.
Just out of curiosity, if that little extension there that's going to end in a dead end, is that also going to be called Saddleback Drive? Is it an alleyway? What will it have a name? Will it really matter?
Mr. Chairman, again, Andy
Yes.
Perlman. It's currently named Future Street.
Okay.
And so that's shown on the subdivision plans that the planning board approved. If and when anything ever happens there, it will get a name at that time.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Perlman Street is in order.
I was going to call it Alderman O'Brien.
Yeah, Alderman O'Brien Street, yeah. That's what I live for. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Perlman, and thank you, Engineer Hudson. Now we'll move on to the petition of street acceptance for Saddleback Drive, and I'll call for testimony in favor. Seeing none, I'll call testimony in opposition. Please come forward. Give us your name and address, please, for the record.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Todd Whitney. My home address is 32 Gordon Street, Nashua, New Hampshire. My family is the budding landowner just to the south of this Saddleback Drive, and Future Street extends to it. And it's my understanding that in order to be accepted, all the work shown on the plan has to be done, including sidewalks. And I don't think, and if you're going to accept Future Street, I think the sidewalks have to be built on Future Street before it can be formally accepted. And I, to my knowledge, they haven't been built yet. They're, by a separate third-party agreement there between the developer and my family, they're supposed to run some whatever electrical underground utilities are under Saddleback is supposed to come through Future. Now, I know storm drain, water, sewer, and perhaps gas have been run under Future Street, but I'm not sure the electrical ones have been run yet. So I just want to make that point. So technically I fall within under an objection, but it's not a big objection. It's just more of a notice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hudson, do you have a rebuttal to that as far as the sidewalks and?
Well, all I can say is I have an as-built plan which shows that a sidewalk has been constructed there. My engineer and inspector have signed off on the construction, so my understanding is that there is a sidewalk there, but if there's not, then that potentially is an issue. I mean, at this point in time, it is a sidewalk to nowhere, so to speak, so I don't think it has much utility currently, nor does the, utility stubs and whatnot. I mean, I'm comfortable accepting that portion of the street currently without that sidewalk, but private agreements aside, I don't know, that's kind of a civil matter between whatever the agreements were between the developer and the other parties. City's not a party to that. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. I mean, again, if that was a concern, that's something that we could, take up. If it wasn't resolved satisfactorily, take it up at the full board, or, should you want to defer for that reason, then that's something we could do, just confirm that. But again, what I'm looking at, I've driven through there, but I wasn't specifically looking for that, so I have an as-built plan from the engineer of record, which says that sidewalk is constructed. So.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Perlman, if you would, please. Would you consider that this gentleman's request with the sidewalk to be another caveat for the completion of the project?
Certainly, I would accept that as a condition before it goes to the full board. That's fine. Hayner Swanson, well-known engineering firm here in town, they provided me and the engineering department the as-built plans verifying what has been built, and it's showing a sidewalk on the future street. But if for some reason that's wrong, that's fine. We'll confirm that with the engineering department.
Okay. All right. Satisfied, sir? Yes, could you come to the microphone? Thank you.
Yeah, I had meant to drive by and do a double check. My memory serves, it was recently that I hadn't seen it, so I could be wrong. So when I leave here, I'll know for sure. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And you have been introduced by the public format to people to talk to for this, so thank you, sir.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, we go back to testimony in favor. Okay, seeing none. Further testimony in opposition? Seeing none. The public hearing for the petition of street acceptance was declared closed at 7:12 p.m. And the regular meeting of the Committee of Infrastructure will open at 7:12 p.m. Okay, at this point, we'll open the meeting up for public comment. Anybody wishing to come forward for public comments? Seeing none. Discussions or presentations, we're going to, with acceptance, we're going to delay that to the end of the meeting because we are expecting somebody to come and provide additional testimony on that. Communications.
I'd like to make a motion to remove from
Okay.
communications.
Communications.
There are none.
There are none. Thank you. Okay. We do have legislation that has been tabled in committee. Can I have the motion to remove from the table 024, 034? Would you like to make that motion?
I would, sir. I'd like to make a motion to remove 024-034 from the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carried. We're going to discuss now 024, 034, assigning Pine Street Extension parking lot to Zone 3. And I would welcome Liz. Yeah, you want to sit down? Fine. And Joe? Yeah. I think we got enough chairs this evening. Welcome. Who wants to, can we X that out? There we go.
Get us started.
Yeah. Who wants to take the lead on this?
I can
Okay,
get
Ms.
started.
Hannum? Yes.
So Liz Hannum, Economic Development Director. This was legislation that we started earlier, or late last year, October-ish last year, that we added, when we made the changes to our parking plan based on our downtown parking study, this was we added this to a permit lot, but we did not add hourly parking to this particular parking lot. And so we would like to do that now, so that customers of the businesses around there can park there without a permit. So they can be hourly parkers instead. So this would add it to zone 3, which is 75 cents an hour. So there's been some conversation about whether or not we would like to charge here. And with all of the issues that we've seen, the development that's potentially happening, and the state of the parking lot that is in very bad shape at the moment, that we would recommend starting to charge at this lot, both permits and hourly parking.
A little housekeeping up here. Did you make the recommendation for final passage?
No, sir. Not
Okay,
yet.
could you make that motion before we,
Yes.
it's a technicality, but.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage for 024-034.
Thank you. Ms. Stanfield, do you have anything to add to that? Or?
Jill Stansfield, parking manager. Everything Director Hannum just explained is accurate. We did have this parking lot as part of our permitted structure, and it was not included in the daily rate parking structure. So the thought was to make this amendment a couple of months ago and be able to have that daily rate as well for people that are visiting the businesses in that area.
Okay. Yeah. All right. You're good, sir? Yep. Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Alderman Dow.
Yeah, I didn't have the questions or concerns, but for some reason or not, I've been involved with this parking lot for it seems like an eternity. I can remember us reviewing this parking lot years ago, and there was discussions at the time somebody wanted to buy it, and we said no, thanks. And the question became on the first row in front of where those businesses are. You know, the discussion, and again, it wasn't my discussion, but the discussion was about, you know, can we lease it to them? Can we give them parking permits for it? Or, you know, evidently they feel that the 75 cents an hour is gonna cause them problems with their customers. Have we resolved all that?
So we have only had conversations so far with the property owners, and that was to the understanding that we would be charging. I think we haven't spoken with the businesses. Most of them we don't keep contact information, so we anticipate that the property owners would disseminate their information to their tenants. But we essentially, no. I mean, we have figured it out based on our parking study, and took recommendations from the consultant, and that's what we're presenting to you tonight.
Further questions, Alderman Dow?
Other things that were discussed was, you know, allowing them to lease the spaces like we do in our parking garages.
Yep, so that was
But you'd
our
have to,
request.
based on my conversations in the years past with the people that own the buildings, you know, there's a big gap between them and the people that rent from them. And it's the people that rent from them that are gonna have the issues. So I thought out of the last Board of Alderman meeting that we were gonna try and get in touch with some of the people to see, you know, I think we received some emails possibly that they were concerned about losing their customers. I know there's not a problem with the majority of the lot, for sure. But, you know, if we did something to at least contact them to discuss one or two spots that could be used, I know in a lot of parking lots, not necessarily in Nashua, that they allocate them for the businesses. So I don't know who had the questions, or actually it might have been Alderman Cleve, but I think that we at least need to have answers on the record for what we're gonna try and do to help the business owners.
I mean, there is private parking around each of the buildings, and so we assume that they're using that.
Oh, Alderman Sullivan, I'm sorry, I was writing.
Oh, no worries. When we re-referred this back to committee, the reason we did it was because the owners of, the tenants came out to express concern, specifically if a couple nonprofits have set up business in there. And this is going to negatively impact their customer base. The fact that they, and maybe their landlords knew, but they didn't know. And there was another private business in there that didn't know. The signs were taken down. They were unsure what was going on with it. I think this needs more work. I think it needs to bring the folks in who provide a service in there, who have a business. I think that this needs a little bit more work before we move ahead with it. I think it's going to negatively impact some business, and when I say business, I also mean nonprofits. And Greater Nashua Mental Health is in there, and there was another gentleman that came to speak that night, and who had said, and I think maybe even United Way came out to speak, or at least sent in some communication around that. I think that this could, by just taking every spot in there that isn't leased, the ones that are kind of out in the parking lot there, as I look at it, I understand there's a lot of spots there, but again, I think that this is going to do more harm than good. I think there's a path forward. I just think we need to work on it. So I'm not going to support it tonight, just because I think more work needs to be done for the folks that have set up shop there.
Ms. Hannum and Ms. Stanfield expressed on what was expressed by Alderman Sullivan. Do you see any need if we tabled it and went back to, you could come up with a better solution, or this is the best we're going to get?
I think there's always room to wiggle room, but I think that because this came out of the recommendation for the parking study, that was the justification for it. I think we anticipated that this might not make it through and be supported, and that's why we pushed it before the other legislation that's on the agenda for tonight, because if it doesn't go through, we need to make some amendments to pull the Pine Street lot off of the permit system, because as of right now, only permit holders can park there in the legislation. We have not enacted that yet, because we didn't want to do anything before and not allow hourly parkers there. So either direction that you go, I think we have anticipated both directions.
Okay. Alderman Dow.
Yeah, just clarify, because I haven't been in that parking lot in a dog's age. No reference to the dog park. But are there already meters in part of that lot? So there are none.
Right.
So, and I know the parking study was recommending the meters to increase revenue to the city for parking. But I think maybe some of the spots could be metered if it comes down to the fact that we need to allow some for the businesses. So I think we need that resolution with a solution before we can go forward.
So, I guess, are you asking us to kind of subdivide the lot, or where, or are you just would like to do communication with the business owners?
I would not recommend a subdivision of the lot.
No, not a real one, but the,
But,
yeah.
you know, to me, you could come up with an interim solution where you meter. What I don't know now is those two buildings, who uses the parking spaces and when. That's probably a good question to have an answer to, and I was thinking that maybe some of the spots could be metered, because I think this lot's gonna get a lot of future use.
yeah,
But we also don't want to take a small company that's in there and cause them additional revenue, you know, whether we have an agreement with them that they pay a lot less for that spot, or, you know, whatever. But I think we need to have some understanding. We've come to an agreement with the people that have businesses there, because they're probably on a long-term lease.
Yeah, along those lines, subdividing, you know, I'm thinking a barrier or something like that, and that would be cost prohibitive, I think, you know. But if certain spots far away, because you want your customers to have easy access, so the employees, unless they're handicapped, could walk, you know, to work, you know, there's only two travels. Could the far end of the lot, away from the building, be designated for employee-only parking, and then get a rate from the, that particular business or something like that for their employees? Can that be explored in future legislation?
it could. However, it doesn't. I don't know why anyone would get a permit when there's free parking closer to their business, if in that lot. So
Okay.
I think it would be really hard for our enforcement to be able to tell the difference between employees and customers. So I don't know that doing permitted and free is going to work necessarily. We have our consultant here, if you don't mind.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Hill, welcome. Come on up.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hill, you may have a seat.
Okay.
Could you please identify yourself and your company as well, please?
For the record, my name is Andy Hill. I'm the Director of Consulting Services for Desmond Design Management. We were the parking consultant firm that put together the initial, this most recent study that was done of downtown parking and the plan that arose from that moving forward. Philosophically, you introduce pricing into any facility, not necessarily as a revenue generation scheme, but as a way to create some mechanisms in order to balance out supply and demand. Our initial assessments of this particular lot 2 years ago were that the utilization was fairly low, which is why we had recommended, if there was pricing to be enacted, that pricing should be enacted at the lowest possible level. My understanding is, for the expediency of getting legislation through, Pine Street was included in the legislation associated with establishing the new rate structures for both monthly and hourly parking. Speaking for myself and speaking strictly from an industry perspective, delaying passage of that legislation may not necessarily negatively impact the availability or function of that lot at this time. However, the analysis that we did of the emerging developments in and around that area, including the NIMCO site, strongly suggests that supply and demand will become an issue at some point in the future. Our initial assessments of this particular lot 2 years ago were that the utilization was fairly low, which is why we had recommended, if there was pricing to be enacted, that pricing should be enacted at the lowest possible level. My understanding is, for the expediency of getting legislation through, Pine Street was included in the legislation associated with establishing the new rate structures for both monthly and hourly parking. So whether you want to move this legislation through at this point in time when utilization is in the 50 to 70% range, or you want to wait until utilization hits at the 85% range, sooner or later, you will be forced to make that decision as a manner to regulate use of this facility to make sure that it is not overrun by individuals seeking free accommodations. Within the reference of assigning some spaces as metered and others as free, certainly that's feasible. There's going to be significant cost associated with that if you're metering just part of the lot. And it does raise some significant issues when it comes to enforcement. So you may be better served looking at establishing at this point in time some sort of time limit that could effectively be enforced by patrolling personnel and monitor utilization of this lot moving forward, reporting back to this body periodically as that utilization rate increases until such point as you reach that 85% threshold on a regular basis, at which point certainly you should at that point in time be looking at instituting both hourly and monthly permits. In the interim, with regards to the question of what do we do with permit holders within this, I can opine on a number of different solutions as far as that goes, but I believe that that matter is essentially in-house within the parking department. I'm happy to advise them on that moving forward. But I don't think you need an act of legislation in order to authorize those strategies.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you. As you were discussing this, I think the solution to me has to include two elements. The first element is clear and concise communication to the business owners. The second is, if hypothetically, if this were to pass tonight, the legislation, I think, has to have a time certain that says we're going to start charging for parking August 1st, 2025, or whatever that date is. And I think that the business owners need to know that ahead of time. And that would be my recommendation to do this, is to fully over-communicate with the tenants, not the landlords, because they are not, that message is not trickling down to the folks that actually are in those buildings and whose businesses would be affected by this. Because to me, this is, you're walking a fine line of being pro-business for the city, but then also generating revenue. And in the world that I come from, once you give somebody something, you can never take it away. So I would say you can, as long as they know about it, that it's going to happen, and then the date certain of when it's going to happen. So they can make decisions as business owners to move forward, either stay in those locations or move somewhere else that would allow that. So that's just my 2 cents.
That might be a good amendment to this, if you want to start charging, is having an active date that we would start that, and that would give us time to do that communication.
If I may, from a industry perspective and a best practices perspective, it is always good to communicate both the why and the when of any type of change in policy. I will caution you, in 25 years of doing this, I've never seen a rate change come through that has been subject to major popular support. So I don't think that that should be a mandate to making adjustments to the rate structures in order to balance supply and demand. Even when you're talking about taking something that was formerly free and applying a fee to it.
Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, a couple things. This lot has been a matter of discussion, as I said before, for years. And back when we were having discussions with the owners of the property adjacent, we could never come to any agreement. They wanted to buy the lot and own it, and we said no. So I think if we have discussion with the businesses, find out they may only need one space, you could mark that space for that company, and, you know, they could be the enforcers. Or you could have, I don't know, some arrangement with them so only their patrons could park there. The other thing is, when we looked at this lot years ago, we had the discussion, if it got to a point where it's 85% and we're paying for parking, there's room to build additional parking spaces. We looked at doing space, I know there's a drop-off, but to the left of that white building at the top, they were going to do angled parking for a few cars. And then in that corner on the other end of the red, it's a drop-off again, but there was room to do additional parking spaces. So, I mean, if it gets that full and we want to make more money, we could do that. But I just think that we need to have a discourse with the businesses so that this committee and the Board of Aldermen have an understanding of what their concerns are and that we've at least addressed them somehow.
Yes, Alderman Thibodeau.
With the structure, the proposed structure of renting spots, poor wording, the intent is that it would be metered spots?
So right now, in our legislation, they're permitted, so a
Correct.
monthly permit, and no free spaces. We just haven't, we haven't set that in motion yet because we didn't want to kind of cut everyone off and not have their customers allowed to park there. So we wanted to pass this legislation in order to do it both together. But right now, we're trying to do both meters and permits, so that we can have both employees and business owners pay for the upkeep of the parking, basically, and kind of turnover within the spaces. So it's going to be both essentially, but if this is passed, then there would be no free parking.
Understood. Would the intent be that it would be a kiosk and each spot would have B42 and then you go to a kiosk and type in?
Jill Stansfield, parking manager, yes, it would either be a pay-by-space or most likely a pay-by-plate, as we're starting to move to that, in that direction with most of our parking areas.
With Alderman Dowd's comment about not subdividing the parking lot, but could you not just identify certain spots that would need to be paid at the kiosk, and then it kind of accomplishes both things?
Do you want to take that?
Conceivably, yes. You could designate a certain number of spaces that were subject to fee for use. Ideally, you would want to designate those spaces closest to the front door with the idea that the instituted fee is not necessarily a mechanism to prevent people from parking close to the door, but rather the fee, if compounded over multiple hours, becomes a disincentive for employees or long-term parkers to take those spaces and leave them open to employees. In terms of practicality of that approach, most likely what you will see is that row or two rows that you designate as fee for use will sit empty the vast majority of the time. unless somebody is really in a rush, and it will just move the body of parkers a couple of rows back as far as that goes. It also creates some very interesting challenges when it comes to enforcement for a department that is already understaffed in that, which opens up the door to all sorts of other potential backlash if folks become aware that policies have been instituted and not being upheld or enforced. So the simple question is, theoretically, it is absolutely possible. From a best practice standpoint, it's not necessarily advisable.
Follow up? Yeah.
Please. Is this the only city-owned parking lot that the city maintains, plows, maintenance, the whole shebang, that is totally utilized by commercial industry and not city property? Does that make any sense?
Yes, so you're saying, do we have other parking lots that are primarily for commercial use versus municipal use?
That are owned by the city?
Yeah, we do.
Jill Stansfield, parking manager. So most of our parking lots support all sorts, everything. Businesses, some support city employees, employees of our downtown, residents of our downtown, so there's a mix.
I think I missed a caveat to my question, which is free, currently free parking. So city-owned, free parking that is totally utilized by commercial industry was the intent of my question.
Jill Stansfield, parking manager. In our downtown, yes, this is the free parking lot currently.
So for that, it is the cost of doing business to figure out where your customers are gonna park, where your employees are gonna park. And if I own my own business on my own property, I would have to maintain said parking lot. So I'm okay with it, but I also support Alderman Sullivan's. I think the businesses need that time, and everything we've heard sounds like I don't know about none, so I won't use that. A majority of them have not heard from the owners of the building that this was gonna happen. So
Right. And
to work on their business plans, how we're gonna handle that with their customers. Are we gonna take it on ourselves so our customers get free spots? I don't know how that would work, but I think there definitely needs to be, so if Alderman Sullivan was to make such a motion, I would definitely be supporting that.
yeah, and I think no matter what, we would give a couple of months at least to communicate with people. I think we enacted the changes maybe in September last year, and they didn't go into effect until January 1st. So we gave ourselves plenty of time to communicate with all of our leaseholders and all of the public before we made any changes. So this would just enable us to do it. It doesn't mean that it's automatically tomorrow enforced, right?
Alderman Sullivan.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to put this ordinance back on the table until a time certain, if I could, please. I'd like to make a motion to place this back on the table and take it back up in May of 2025. That way it'll give about 60 days for the economic development team and the parking team to discuss with the owners, come up with a date that would make sense for us to move forward to start charging with this, and then also to take into account the NIMCO property that's coming online, when and where that's going to happen. So I'd like to make that motion to table it for a time certain in May of 2025.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Discussion on the motion.
Table motion debatable?
Is a motion to table.
Yes, but is it debatable?
Yeah, that's right too. Technically, the motion to table is non-debatable. But I do have an off comment. This doesn't delay anything what you're trying to do for the fix here, correct?
Well, right, it would give us time to talk to the business owners.
Yeah.
And then we would still have to give 3 or 4 months notice when it is
Okay.
approved. But so, yeah, so that's fine.
Okay, Good. Sounds like it's doable, Alderman Sullivan, so therefore, since no discussion on the tabling motion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to table carries, and we're hoping to have this before us again with 1 month. Well, you
Well, I
said May,
suggested
but
May, which would give them 60 days-ish.
is that good enough, or you want shorter?
Yeah, I think that would give us enough time.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
May infrastructure meeting, you'll bring it forward again. Okay. Alderman Dow.
So I think one of the things we want to see, and the next time we discuss this, is what are the businesses involved? How many employees do they have that have parking? And how many customers at a time do they anticipate? So that we get an idea, because if you had an employee and they paid for parking at 75 cents an hour and they work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you know, you're talking about $1,700.
Well, likely those people would get permits versus paying the hourly rate.
For free.
No. So that's,
But it's gonna be a cost.
Right.
So you wanna find out, you know, as I recall, some of these businesses, you know, they probably don't make a hell of a lot of money and they have maybe one customer at a time. But we need that information. I'm sure it's changed since the last time I was there.
okay. Sounds good.
Also, too, what I would like to know, they pay a certain amount for a permit. What would be the cost factor to metering? You know, is it relatively close? It's not that much of a economic pinch, if you know what I mean, you know. Because I know Zone 3, it's one of the, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Stanfield, but it's one of the lower ends in the city, so the impact may not be as bad as like Main Street or something like that, right? Yeah, that would be good to know too, yeah. Okay, all right, so we have a pass on the motion to table. We'll now move to new business resolutions.
There are none.
Okay, and yes, your team's staying there, 'cause, oh, yes. New business ordinances.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion.
Well,
Oh,
introduce it, please.
oh, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
O25-052, adjustments to the parking ordinances. I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage.
Okay, there's a motion for final passage, but I do have one little caveat myself. In reading the ordinance, I did come up with, on the ordinance, it's 12 foot for parking next to the curb. I'm sure that's a typo mistake. It should be a double prime symbol for inches, you know. If you want to wreck your tire by rubbing up a curbstone, I guess you can, but you're not supposed to be more than 12 inches in theory, and God bless you if you're measuring that, you know what I mean? But anyways, it is a law, and it should be accurate. So I'm going to make the motion, if I may, to amend by changing the table on page 6, line safety, from 12 feet from curb, $50, to life safety, 12 inches from curb, $50. Okay? Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay,
So that was for the amendment, correct?
that was for the amendment, correct. Now, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage as amended.
Okay, discussion on the motion.
So
Yes, Alderman Dowd.
I don't have that in front of me. Is there something in there that covers, I think you said covers this lot we just discussed. So
Yes, so,
can we put wording in there so we can pass this tonight without,
there's a few things here. So the ordinance, as we've made changes before the amendment, we're talking about a couple of changes. The biggest thing is the snow fee. So towing during a snow parking ban, parking emergency, rather, snow emergency, there we go. So that was mistakenly put as $100. We've always done it at $200, so we've made that change here. And all of the signage, the blue signs that you see that say no parking during a snow emergency, those all say $200. And so we found out this past snow emergency that we made a mistake there. And so we just changed a few things within the, just technical things within the fee schedule. Other than that, we changed a few things from life safety to major life safety. I think we modified, we didn't have a $75 fee, so we moved it, or we had two $75 fees, and we moved them all into the same level at $200 or at $100.
Just hold on, Alderman Dowd. You done with your presentation, Ms. Hannon?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Alderman Dowd.
I was just gonna ask, how do you want the motion to amend read? It's pretty easy for the 100 to 200, and that's pretty simple. And what was the other?
So that's not the amendment. So that's just what this legislation would be to change it from 100 to 200.
Oh, so it's already in the legislation.
Yeah. So the additional amendment would be to take Pine Street Extension lot out of the permit system. But since the legislation earlier was just tabled and not recommended, I would say that we probably don't have to do that at this point. We can then decide again at the May meeting whether or not the metered parking goes through. We can decide at that point.
Amended then.
Yeah.
I did have a,
Yeah, Alderman Sullivan?
thank you. I want to make sure, this is page 2, it's section 320-53.4. In the table, letter B, following monthly fees apply. Tier 3, it says Pine Street lot. Should that read Pine Street Extension lot?
I'm sorry, which number are you looking at?
Number
320?
So it's page 2, it's section 320, 53.4 under permitted spaces and fees. In
I see.
paragraph B, there's 3 tiers listed,
Yeah.
and it says Pine Street lot. Should that read Pine Street Extension lot?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend the wording. Section 320, 53.4, permitted spaces and fees, tier 3, to read Pine Street Extension lot. I'm adding in the word extension. Please.
Okay. Yeah, and we're keeping Maple Street lot as intact, I imagine, so. Okay, the motion before us is to further amend 025052 to correct the Pine Street Extension lot. Okay, any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, and I'm looking at the list here. You do have this table.
Yes.
You do have snow emergencies already, or snow removal at $200.
Yeah, she said that was the part of the original legislation.
Yeah, so we took out the entire fee schedule and created a new one.
Right, you went from 100 to 200.
Yeah,
correct.
so
Yeah.
there's basically three different things that were in there. So the snow emergencies went from 1 to 200, and then the major life safety amounts went from 75 to 100, because that's what it is. That's what we've been doing, and it's in our system already. So that just technical corrections.
Okay. All right. I love my committee. We're doing yeoman work here. Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you. I have another question. It's the same section, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Page 5, paragraph I. It says here there shall be a $500 fee for each on-street parking space, which is eliminated due to an approved extended outdoor dining permit. According to ordinance 20-024-036, it calls for $1,000 a space.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to further amend 025-052, paragraph I, changing $500 fee to $1,000 fee.
Okay, discussion on the motion, but I'm going to refer to Ms. Hammond on this motion.
Yeah, I think this, what you're saying, was in the legislation for the barriers, but it didn't get amended here. It was only amended in that section, so it's just connecting the two.
So this cleans it up and everything?
Yep.
Good catch, Alderman Sullivan.
Yeah, and just to, if I may,
Yes, you may.
it does further detail, which I like, the language here. So it doesn't require the business to pay for the barriers that are placed at an angle.
Right.
So they don't get dinged for that. They only get the ones
Right.
out in
Yep.
front. So I like that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. So for clarity, Alderman Sullivan, you want to raise the fee to $1,000.
I'm trying to help the parking permits here.
No, I agree. Poor Ms. Stansfield's division could use a little of the help.
Gave you $500 more per space.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, and you got to keep in mind, not all the money goes to the division. Some of it goes to the Great American Downtown, doesn't it, for the holiday stroll, different things like that.
No,
Not from that.
Yeah, that comes from a different pot, but
Yeah.
It used to go to the Downtown Improvement Committee.
Okay.
But we've created a general fund line item for that going forward. So it doesn't affect us
Okay.
here.
All right. All right, very good. Any further discussion on the Sullivan motion of raising the fee?
It's not raising the fee, it's correcting.
It's matching it.
Matching the fees, yeah.
Yes.
Matchy match.
Thank you for the term. Thank you. All right. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the roll. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Which brings us back to the main bill, unless there's further amendments, of a motion by Alderman Thibodeau to recommend final passage as amended. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the roll. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. And moving along, we have the next item to discuss.
Petition?
Yes.
Petition for street acceptance of Saddleback Drive. I'd like to make a motion to grant petition, grant or deny petition, I don't know how to word that.
Um,
Acceptance of petition.
basically, you make the positive motion to,
All right, I'd like to make a motion to grant petition for street acceptance, Saddleback Drive.
okay. We have the motion to accept the street acceptance Saddleback Drive. Could you bring that up on the screen, please, again? Yes, okay. As we heard earlier through testimony from Mr. Perlman, Attorney Perlman, are we all good? Is there any questions further questions by members on the committee? We can have Mr. Perlman, who has hung around, I'm sure would be, yes, Alderman Dow.
Yeah, I think we had all of that ironed out. I think that they're gonna go check and see if the lights are on.
Yeah, there is a
And,
caveat to
If there's
this.
a problem with the lighting, we can bring it up at the full board meeting, so I don't see no reason we can't approve it.
Right, and sounds like our chief engineer, Mr. Hudson, is on top of that. Yes, Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you. To the gentleman who came out tonight, there were private agreements between himself and the developer of the land. I'm assuming, since Mr. Hudson also mentioned that that's not between the city and the homeowner, that's more between the developer and the homeowner. So
Correct.
that should not delay anything that any of the business pertaining to that. Am I correct in assuming that?
I would assume so, yes.
Okay.
And that's why I had them come up and discuss with Mr. Perlman and everything. It's
Okay.
hoped in the future that they can sit down, I'm sure as gentlemen, and discuss it
Sure.
and come up with the solution.
Okay.
And all that would be on the developer,
Sure.
not the municipality.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah, okay. So we have the motion to grant the petition for street acceptance in Saddleback Drive. Any further comment? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, stepping back in the pecking order, we were waiting to hear to recognize as Administrative Service Director, Mr. Cummings, and Library Director, Jennifer McCormick. Can you please, why don't you come up and have a chair?
All right.
Get comfortable. It's the hot seats.
And I believe there's a slide deck loaded up on your screen there, and so I'm not sure if you want to give me the clicker or if you want to click.
Yeah, there's the clicker in the drawer.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go, in all its beauty.
Thank you, sir. All right, so for the record, Mr. Chairman, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. With me, I have Director Jennifer McCormick of the library. I am here this evening because I thought it would be worthwhile and behoove us to get an update from the library and all the great work that they've been doing. As you recall, last night I was before the Special Board of Aldermen to give a general overall capital improvement planning update. One of the projects I had teased out on the horizon was, we know the library currently has a study underway, a feasibility study underway, and as that continues on, I can only imagine it will lead to a capital project. And anticipation of that, I thought it would be good to just have a quick conversation with you all this evening, give you an update, provide an opportunity for Q&A, and then we can continue to move on as necessary. So I didn't want to steal any of Director McCormick's thunder, but I did want to set the stage a little bit so people had an orientation as to why we were here this evening, and I thank you all. So if that concludes my comments, Mr. Chairman, if I could hand it off to Director McCormick.
Great.
Okay, Director McCormick.
Thank you very much. Jennifer McCormick, Library Director. I appreciate the chance to give you a brief update. I actually came here, I was late tonight because I was leading a public input session about the feasibility study this evening, so my apologies for being late. To set the stage a little bit as to how we got here, just wanted to remind this group about the technical assessment that was done of the building back in 2022. That was done by Design Lab Architects. That was a comprehensive study of all of our systems, the building envelope, the utilities, and code compliance. You will recall that at the conclusion of that study, their recommendation was a complete renovation of the building due to the number and scope of deficiencies. All of our mechanical systems are at end of life. There are leaks through the bricks. The windows are all original to the building. So to do it piece by piece is not really feasible. The estimated cost of renovation, just the basic scope to correct those deficiencies, was 16 to 19 million. And then including an enhanced scope, which would improve the exterior of the building, replace all of the finishes inside, and alter the staircase in the building. That enhanced scope, the cost was approximately 23 to 29 million. That's a pretty big investment.
And I'm going to insert myself right here just to point out these numbers are a few years old and all pre-tariff conversations. So just keep that in the back of your mind as we continue this conversation.
And I do have a question. The 23 to 29 million, I understand what you said. But is that total the 16 to 9 million on top, or 16 to 9 million, then an additional?
No, that includes that 16 to 19.
Okay, so it's a total package would be
Correct. And during,
north of 29 maybe, yeah.
right, I hope not, but probably. And during the presentation to this committee or the Board of Aldermen, the question was rightly raised whether spending that much money on a 55-year-old building made sense, or does it make more sense to build brand new? So next step in our renovation process is the space needs assessment that we're working on now. And that study will determine how much space we actually need for library operations. And that will be based on observation of how the staff use the building, how customers use the building, community engagement, which we're conducting now, excuse me, general knowledge of library operations and the evolution of libraries in the last 50 years. We're using Design Lab again for that study. They were selected from the 5 companies that bid, based both on their experience with our building and their experience with other library buildings of similar age and design. Providence Public Library comes to mind. And also as a reminder of this committee and to anyone watching this, the cost of both of these studies have been shared between the city and library trust funds. I thought this group would be interested in a timeline. During February and March, we've been working with Design Lab on data gathering and community engagement. We've done focus groups, some public input sessions. A public survey went live today, and we'll start publicizing that. During April, the architects will take all of that data and develop a program, so an idea of how much space and what kind of space the library needs, and present those findings. Then during May, they'll work on their concepts. So the trustees have asked them to develop 3 different concepts. One would be renovating in place. One would be building a brand new building on the parking lot adjacent to the library. And then the third option to consider would be demolishing the current building and building new in the current location. We expect in July their report to be done and for them to be making a final report to the Board of Aldermen and the Board of Trustees. And the last slide, if you want to keep up on updates to this, we do have a page on our website. You can always call me directly if you want a tour. And during the next 2 phases, as they present findings and then their final concepts, there will be workshops, and we'll issue invitations to city leadership, including the Board of Aldermen, to participate in those.
Okay, thank you. Any questions by members of the committee? Yes, Alderman Sullivan.
Director McCormick, good to see you again. Thank you again for the tour on Friday morning to show me your, I don't want to call it prehistoric, but the HVAC system.
It's antique.
It is ancient, for sure. You had mentioned that you had a public session tonight?
Tonight, yes.
I'd be curious to know just your overall feeling, any comments that stood out to you? Did anyone show up? You know, those things?
Yeah, they did. We had 2 sessions today, one at 2, one at 6.
Okay.
Altogether, we had 21 or 22 people participate.
Oh, that's good.
Lots of comments about uncomfortable temperature, the building not being handicapped accessible. People love the meeting space and wish we had more of it. And one woman would like a movie theater with stadium seating, cushioned. So we've had really good participation.
Good.
And we did have one very young library user who would like us to bring the iPads back to the children's room.
Okay, very good. Excellent.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes, you can also add more restrooms.
Yes.
So my feeling, being familiar with construction a little bit, is that it's going to take you till summertime to figure out which approach makes more sense, and it's probably going to be to replace the existing building. I have a concern there on the how to approach it, but then at some point you would have to hire an architect to do a design, which is going to take time. And then after you have an architect do the design, you'd have to hire a construction manager to do the costing. So it doesn't look like any shovels hitting the ground in FY26.
That is correct.
Okay. I think you had a project put in with monies for 26, as I remember.
The monies for 26 would be the next phase of design.
Okay. And the other thing that you may or may not have an answer for is if you decide to build in the parking lot, which again would take at least a couple of years, construction. What do you do with parking in the interim?
That is a really good question.
Yeah.
I think my friend Director Hannum and I might have to have some conversations
So,
about that.
yeah, I know a lot, not too far, never mind. It's gonna get on Pine Street. So if you tear the existing building down and build, now you don't have a library for a couple of years.
Correct.
That's another issue. So you have a lot of things to work out before you can start designing and build and costing and all that. So I just think at some point, as you go further along, keep us involved in the timeline, because if money is going to be set aside in the soon-to-be renamed ad hoc committee.
Okay, yep.
Director Cummings is trying to come up with a good name. You know, then we have some idea as to where it fits into our schedule.
So just a couple clarifications, if I may, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with what a lot of Alderman Dowd just said, but I think what we also need to keep in the back of our mind is we're trying to get onto a schedule where we're trying to do the bond authorizations annually at a certain period of time in the year, and in anticipation of that, and not wanting to do requests throughout the year, we need to start to look and forecast out as to how we're going to need to do our capital improvement planning. And actually, the timeline that was outlined tonight actually falls very well with that, because we know we're going to need to do some level of design starting in the summertime, and we don't know what that design is, but we do know we're going to need to have that money. And I don't want to suggest that we wait any longer than necessary, because construction costs are only going to go up. So with that one caveat, I just kind of wanted to tease that out. And I absolutely agree that we have a few years before we actually start construction on this project, no matter what we do. So we're still going to need to maintain that building. We still need to be very cognizant of how we retain that asset for our residents and our consumers. I think as the feasibility study wraps up this spring, we will have more detail and more knowledge to actually direct the designers as to what it is the preferred alternative that we will go with. And it would be a very successful process. This is actually a process that we have talked about over the last few years of actually trying to get a level of design, a level of understanding in place before we actually do full authorizations of construction projects. And I think that's something we need to be, a goal we should continue to work towards. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, just for clarification, I wasn't saying we don't allocate any money for design and costing. I was thinking construction.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree with you, Alderman Deb.
Alderman Sullivan.
Well, I'm gonna say something. This is not, I'm not looking to debate, I'm just throwing it out there into the ether. But I think, I look at that property, and when you said that there's a possibility of perhaps building a brand-new library where the parking lot is, and then the question of where people would park, I immediately thought, well, you could go down and you could do like a built-in parking garage. And again, I don't know what any of this costs. I'm just throwing it out there to say, look, there's parking below the library, and then you build up. Now, the land where the library was, I look across the river and I see condos. Would the city ever consider perhaps selling off that plot of land to a private developer, using those funds to help fund a brand new library? And when you look at that whole plot of land, you see housing, new housing, you see a brand new modern library, perhaps 3 or 4 stories, depending on whatever the feasibility study comes back and says as far as space needs. Again, I'm just putting that out there. I don't, whatever. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yes, Director Cummings.
Yes, thank you. I agree wholeheartedly with Alderman Sullivan. I think we need to study this approach. I think if we can unlock the potential of the riverfront for private sector investment, it will increase the value of that whole neighborhood, and I think that's something that we should really look at. And then we can still look at trying to have an institutional or municipal use that is very complementary to that neighborhood, but doesn't necessarily need to have that prime real estate. I think that's something that we should entertain and look at and see if it's something that we can do. I think no matter what, we should start looking forward in terms of public-private partnerships and understanding how we may need to work strategically with our partners in the area to see how we fund things differently, because taxpayers can't shoulder the burden on everything on their own. So we need to think innovatively for some of these thoughts, and I would like to believe as we continue along in the feasibility study or the design, we will start to look at that. I will caution that unless you're using the grade to your advantage in some way, doing any type of subgrade type parking might be a little cost prohibitive. But should we look to try to also continue the river walk around that side of the river, try to enhance for everyone's benefit that whole area, and also try to improve the library? That would be a very good comprehensive approach. And I believe that is one of the reasons why the library has been very deliberative in taking this strategic approach. So we're trying to assess the best approach, taking all these various factors into consideration.
Alderman Dowd.
You don't want to throw any scares out there, but I think in the process, you ought to do some testing to see if either one of those lots has asbestos underneath it, because we've found some further down.
Alderman Dowd, I think we both know that there is asbestos in that area that we need to be concerned about.
Everywhere in the city.
As long as we can encapsulate it.
So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, we wanted to come tonight just to kind of give you a teaser, a little bit of an overview, the work that's been done to date, because, you know, this is, as I said, a project on the horizon, and wanted to make you all aware of that as we continue to move forward. So thank you for your time this evening.
And I thank you, and also to note, looking out at the audience, Ms. Hannon's ears popped up on that one too, so you can have your conversation, Ms. McCormick, on that. But it does sound like a good idea, Alderman Sullivan, you know, to keep that in the shirt pocket, so to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, general discussion? Seeing none. Public comment? Seeing none. Remarks by Alderman? Seeing none. Alderman Thibodeau, do you have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, there's a motion to adjourn, which is always in order. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Got to declare the Committee of Infrastructure adjourned at 8:21.